with the Zoom, etc. Um, where we left off, Naomi had proposed a very, very bold plan to Rus to go down to the threshing floor where Boaz found himself, was going to sleep over. She was going to, she told her to get dressed up in her Shabbos finery, find out where Boaz was sleeping, and then lie down next to him and let things proceed from there, which for Boaz being the Gadol Hador was a very, very bold plan that Naomi had, and it was right on the borderline of being appropriate or not appropriate. We have to look at what happened to Ruth and Boaz, not as somebody would make a movie or somebody would treat this as a love story, because it's far from that. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu working through Ruth and Boaz, setting up a situation that will lead to Malchus Beit David, that will lead to the birth of David. So we can't, while some of the behavior might be somewhat questionable, borderline, you have to understand that all of this behavior, all of the things that are going on, which we'll discover today in the share if I bring it out properly, was really all arranged by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to happen. Just like Yehuda and Tamar, when she was out on the road and got all dressed up. And we went through all the particular options that she had, and Yehuda just happened to walk by. All of these things were arranged by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So where we're going to pick up today, now Boaz has woken up in the middle of the night, and he finds that Rus Sholchev Margalosov, she's laying next to him. And he's very, very frightened. He doesn't know what to make of all of this, okay? And this becomes now a very, very supreme test for Boaz, right? Rus's purpose was to get Boaz to perform Yibum. Yibum, we know, cannot have any element of desire or lust involved in the two parties. Yibum has to be a straight, for want of a better word, mechanical, routine type of a thing where Hakim Shem Achiv, where the Yibum has to know that he's doing this precisely to give his brother a name, not for any other purposes, not for romantic purposes, not to fulfill any desires that he has, lustful desires. So now Boaz is woken up in the middle of the night, and lo and behold, he has Rus laying at his feet. And the supreme test for Boaz is if, in fact, he could, again, once Rus tells him what he wants, if he could curb any kind of lustful feelings that he might have towards her. Because if he does, then we can't talk about Yibum being done properly.
But this really isn't Yibum.
We'll talk about what this really is, okay? We'll talk about what this really is, all right? Is this really Yibum or not? Certainly it's a debate, okay? Talk about what it really is. Secondly, as we will discover, Boaz is not even next in line to be the one to perform any kind of Yibum. He will tell Rus there is a closer relative, a closer Goel than he is. And he has the prime responsibility. He has first choice in all this matter. So if the Boaz were to exercise any kind of desire to Rus, it would be considered to be adultery. It would be considered to be an improper union of the two. And certainly, L'Hakim Shem Achiv, L'Hakim Shem Ames, certainly would not be able to be filled properly if that was the thing. So Boaz now has a real decision to make. He wakes up, he's frightened, and again he sees Rus is laying at his feet. What does he do with her? What does he do? So a normal person, even a righteous person, would get up and probably maybe push her away or what you call it, first would do some kind of a curse or get the heck out of here or something like that, would not, say properly. I mean, Gadol is davening in the shul and somebody comes over and interrupts him. It takes a lot not to respond negatively. Get out of here. You're interrupting my davening. So I want to start with Pasuk 10 now and see what Boaz's response to this very, very dangerous moment for him is. He says, Vayomer, and he says, we're at Rus chapter 3, Pasuk 10. Vayomer, Barucha at Lashem biti. On the contrary, instead of pushing her away or probably uttering something that would be inappropriate coming from his mouth, he blesses her. He says, Barucha at Lashem. I want to at Aleph to Tuf, all sorts of midos, beginning to end. Barucha at Lashem biti. Hey Taf Chazdech or Acharon min Orishon. Your latest act of kindness is greater than the first. All right, we'll soon see what Boaz was meant by that. While you're going after, you're not going after young men, but you're putting yourself in the hands of an 80-year-old man to perform yibum. That's a greater chesed than all the other chesed that you did before. So it's two meanings to this. Number one, what Boaz is saying to her, the fact that she has indicated that Boaz, should be a yibum, all right? Because, like Bob said, strictly speaking, okay, she's not entitled to yibum. Okay? Naomi is the one that's entitled to the yibum, all right? But Rus's chesed was so much that she felt compelled to get a name for her deceased husband, right, which was Malchut. Also, what he's saying is this last act of chesed, of wanting to perpetuate the name of Machlon, that chesed is greater than all the other chesed you did before. Taking care of Naomi, feeding her, picking in the fields for her, converting, okay, going with her on the journey from Moab to Eretz Yisrael and taking care of her. This chesed, okay, this last chesed, is greater than the previous chesed, all right? Go back to your handouts now. I put in there, and I never mentioned, and it's been laying around there, look at number 1 as a footnote in your handouts. It's been laying there very, very quietly. I haven't referred to it at all, right? And it's the story of Lot and his daughters. Because to understand what's going to happen now, we have to really understand the story of Lot and his daughters, all right? Now, if you go to most people, you ask them to explain the story of Lot and his daughters, they will tell you that this was something very, very terrible that happened, right? Daughters should entice the father, get the father drunk, and have them impregnated through their father. It's unheard of, all right? So we have to look at this story in a different manner, and I want to just go through it very, very quickly with you, and we'll see so many similarities going all the way back to this story of Lot and his daughters. We're going to tie that up with what we call Tamar and Yehuda, and then we're going to bring it forward to Rus and Boaz. All right, so it's in Pashas Vayera. I'll just read it through very, very quickly. Sodom and Gomorrah have been destroyed. Lot and his daughters are on the run, 3 of them. We know Lot loses his wife because she turns back. And Kadosh Baruch Hu wants him to go to a certain place. Lot is tired, they can't make it, so they turn off and they go into a cave. All right, so they're in the cave. All right. Vayeshev b'marah, they're in the cave. Everybody got number one in the handout. Vayeshev b'hu shtei b'nosav. V'atomen ha'b'chira el asiro avinu zakein, that we have an older father. Yesh ein bo'aretz lavo alenu k'derech kol haaretz. The daughters think that the entire world has been destroyed. I mean, there's no CNN, there's no Fox News, there's no internet. All they know is what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah, and they make the leap that the entire world has been destroyed, except for the three of them. And they say, "Ish ein bo'aretz lavo alenu k'derech kol haaretz." How is the world going to be perpetrated? There's no men that are available to us in marriage. So they come up with a plan. L'chod nashke es avinu yoyin. Let's get our father drunk. Nishkaba imo. We'll have relations with him. Unechayim avinu zora. And from our father, we'll perpetrate the world, perpetuate the world. Right? But tashkenos v'yon yayin b'laylahu. But tovo ha'bchira v'tishka v'sabiya. You take a look, there's a little dots over the word Bekuma, this and that. Chazal say that, and those dots are in the Torah when you're laying, that those dots are in there to say he wasn't so drunk Lot himself. He really knew what was going on, all right? Certainly by the second daughter already, the next night he knew, okay? But the purpose of the daughters having relations with the father, while we would think today morally that it's certainly incorrect, what was their purpose? Their purpose was to populate the world, okay? To populate the world. Just to show you the linkage or a little story between these two stories. Where, when the Torah tells us, where did Boaz lay down? Where did he lay down? On the threshing floor. We refer to the threshing floor as what? Aramah, Ayin, Reish, Mem, Hey. He laid down on the Aramah. Okay. If I take the word Aramah, okay, and I jumble the letters up, I have Ma'ara, right? The same place that Lot and his daughters went. Write it out. Rita doesn't like this again. Write out the word Aramah. And you have in that word mi'ara, right? Okay. So Rita likes it, and Ada doesn't like it. Okay. Right. So the same type of linkage, right? Okay. So knowing that, let's move on now. All right. I'll read you a medrash. But what? Excuse me. Well, hold. I can't do two kinds of concepts. Bella, please. Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Right. Okay, so Ada is saying that Lot's daughters, there was more justification for her doing, for them doing what Ruth's doing. What's wrong with Ruth's justification? She wants to continue a name for Machlon. Elimelech has no name. Machlon has no name. It's not morally right what Ruth did. Well, if it's not morally right what Ruth did, how does David HaMelech come out of all of that? It had to be morally right. And we'll see the odds. I'm jumping ahead. But what are the odds of an 80-year-old plus man? And Boaz at the time is 80. And Ruth is 40. And Ruth not being able to conceive for so many years with Machlon. What are the odds that an 80-year-old man with one night of marriage, because Boaz is going to die the next day, okay, impregnates Ruth? maybe you're turning it around. Maybe Boaz did know, because what was Boaz's rush to try to become the Goel, to try to perform even when there was somebody closer? We'll see how Boaz has to manipulate himself, manipulate the situation, okay, to get to Rus. It's not so easy, because there's a closer Goel, and there's a halacha there also that everybody at that time thought Moab below Moaviyah, all right? So he has a lot to overcome. Yet he's going to make a promise to her. We'll see in the text soon that yes, I am going to be the Goel. All right? Okay. So I want to read you a medrash, translated it into English because I found it in English. All right. It's a wonderful medrash that expressly connects Ruth's active seduction of Boaz on the threshing floor to the active seduction of Lot in the cave, the burning city of Sodom. Okay. Right. The two acts of Chesed, referring to Lot's daughters and referring to Rus, bookend 200 years. 200 years. The first seduction in the cave by a young woman of an older man, nobly intended for incestuous, is brought full cycle by the second seduction on the threshing floor of a young woman of an older man. It's the same story over and over again. Okay? The first incident literally began the Moabite line through Lot, Abraham's seed. The second seduction transforms the Moabite back into an Israelite and perpetuates Abraham's seed. Right? Right. All right, let's go forward. So Rus has made her intentions clear, and Boaz has to now. We're going to see Rus is first going to be a little bit disappointed. The next two psukim. Bi'ata biti al tiri. This is Boaz still talking to Rus. Don't be afraid. Kol asher tomri. Everything that you said, everything that you want, eseloch, I will do. Right? Ki odeya kol sharami ki eshes chayil ot. Because everybody knows from your behavior these last 3 months in Bethlehem that you are now an eshes chayil. Remember, last week the Torah referred to Boaz as a Gibor Chayil. So what would be more normal than an Eshes Chayil and a Gibor Chayil getting together? That's why the Torah uses those words, all right? However, the Ator, I want you to know it is a stumbling block now. We have a problem. Ki omnom goel anochi. It is true that I am a redeemer. And remember last week we made the difference. I taught you the difference between a goel and a yibum. A goel is somebody that redeems land when a person is poor. Okay? When a person is poor, having nothing to do with yibum, right? We read that pasha through. Person becomes poor. Right. The Gam Yesh Goel Korov Mimeni. There is a Goel that has first options on all of this. Let's go back now to your handouts. I printed up for you the very, very beginning a genealogy chart. So let's trace this genealogy chart. It's a full page, okay? And we'll see what Boaz is talking about. Right, everybody got the chart? You all there? Okay, you have Nachshon. You see where it says Nachshon? Nachshon gives birth to 4 sons. One is Naomi's father, and for some reason, his name is unknown. Why that should be, I don't know. But it seems Chazal, somehow his name is lost. Elimelech, who becomes Naomi's husband, right? Salmon, who has since passed away, and who was Boaz's father, but has since passed away, and Poloni Almoni, who's the individual we're going to be interested in. His name is Tov, T-O-V. You see it there? It's in the chart. So at this point, Elimelech has passed away. That's her husband, obviously. Salmon, Boaz's father, has passed away. So Poloni Almoni, as the uncle of Naomi, is the next one up. He's the Korov. He's the closest male relative that is responsible for redeeming her land. Right? You see, Boaz is just really a cousin to Naomi. You look at the chart. So that's what Boaz is referring to. There is a closer Goel than me. Remember, keep the word Goel and Yibum separate. They're different kinds of things. Right? He says to her, Lini Halayla. It's the middle of the night when all this is taking place. By Yiba Chatzi Halayla, middle of the night, when this whole conversation started. He said, spend the rest of the night here. Okay? Well, and again, Boaz is putting himself in a very, very dangerous situation. Because to have this woman spend the night with him raises all those questions with whether he's going to have some desire for her, which he can't if he's to perform Yibum. When it become the morning, okay, if the closest Goel will step up to the plate and acknowledge his responsibility, Tov, you'll be good. It'll be good. It's also a remez that it's funny that Tov is also happens to be the name of the Goel. So Im Yigolech Tov. If Tov will step up and exercise his responsibilities, Yigol, he'll do it. All right? But if he doesn't want to fulfill his responsibilities, Anochi Chai Hashem, he takes a shua, I will be the next one. I will perform Goel. All right? I will be the Goel. Shech V'yad HaBoker. Okay? Shech V'yad HaBoker. Stay here. He doesn't want Rus to go home. Why? Because number one, it's dangerous to walk through the threshing floor and that whole environment in the middle of the night. Because, the workers are out there sleeping and whatever it is, they're carousing, they just had a party. So he's concerned about Ruth's safety. He doesn't want to send her back. But Rita's shaking her head. Huh? Rita has no comment. She's only shaking her head. So again, she repeats what we spoke about last week, which we got into a whole debate between Ada and myself. But Tishkav Magalosov. Okay? Why would that same thing happen all over again? This time, I want you really to take a look at the spelling of the word Magalosov and look at the spelling in sentence 7 and 8. Tell me if you see a difference. Tishkav Magalosov Adaboker, so she lays. Huh? Oh, so Rita picked it up. The word Magalosov. So again, all right. The word Margalosov.
It has the bug.
It's a creek sleeve anyway.
So the difference was, again, as I proposed last week, which I'm not going to get into again, was the purpose of what she did when she laid down on the feet, okay? So, but Tishkab Magalosov, the second laying down, Ada, was different than the first laying down. The first laying down, she uncovered his feet, correct? This one, now that she's gotten what she wants from Boaz, that he's already promised her that he will, in fact, take care of this whole thing of being a Goel, the laying down on his feet is for a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
They is not there. Yes, they figured it out. Okay? All right. But Tokom, she got up eventually, the Terem Yakirish Esrayeyo, before the crack of dawn, right? By Yomer, and she said, Ayivodah, I don't want it to become known. Kivor Isha Hagorin, that there was a woman that spent the night here on the threshing floor, right? Okay. Boaz obviously can't walk her home. It's a question why, because what was he sleeping there for? Because he had the piles, the bundles, all the harvest, and he was afraid to leave it unattended because the people of a low moral character, they would steal what he had. So he had to spend the night there. Okay. But he doesn't send her home empty. Okay. Vayomer Havi Hamitapachas Hamitpachat Alayach. Okay. Take this a big kerchief, open up your kerchief, and hold it. Now, what's going on here? Okay. Very shortly, most of us, all of us, if we haven't done it already, we're going to do Mechiras Chametz. Right? What happens at Mechiras Chametz? Right? What does the rabbi give you when you do Mechiras Chametz? Doesn't he give you something? He gives you something. He gives you a pen. Sometimes gives you a handkerchief and stuff, right? Okay. He's doing the same thing. He's making a contract with her. He's already promised her that he's going to be the goel. He's sealing this deal, this agreement. He can't write up a contract. So they're each holding on to a portion of Ruth's kerchief. Just like the rabbi, you're going to hold on to the rabbi's pen, right? Why are you so confused, Ata? You look very... Okay, all right. Vatoches boss, so they each hold on to it, okay? And he uses it for another reason. I'm at sentence 15. Vayomad sheish siorim, he fills up that very, very big kerchief with 6 pieces of barley, 6 types of food, all right? Vayoshes oleha, and she puts it upon herself, right? Vayoboh ha'ir, and she goes back to Bethlehem, where Naomi, who set this whole thing up, is anxiously waiting to find out what happened, right? Okay, so it's a very good question because I'll say it's in the masculine, okay? So it said she dressed up and he gave her this big, heavy load, okay, to carry. So that this load could normally only be carried by a male, right? Because it was big. And he wanted to disguise her so that people should not think that there was a woman coming from the threshing floor. So therefore, by Yovo instead of by Tovo. Good. See, you picked it up. So how did they know all of that? Like you would say to me, if I would have said it first, you would have said to me, how do you know that? Right? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So Boaz is doing 2 things. If in fact his ultimate plan is to marry Rus, to be the Goel, and to perform Yibum, become her husband, whatever it might be, she will have to be in his house, right? How is Naomi going to get supported? So what Boaz is doing now is he's giving Rus sufficient food to support Naomi, okay? One act of chesed. Rita's not writing anymore. 1 act of chesed, okay? 6 is like, how did Boaz know all of these things? So 6 has a certain, he was telling her that 6 tzaddikim will come from you. 6 tzaddikim. Who are the 6 tzaddikim? Well, we know David. We know the 3, Hananiel, Azariah, Mishael, right? Right? So those 3, that's 4. Daniel is 5. Also from Shevet Yehuda, related to Rus, okay, and the Mashiach. So those are the 6. Okay. But Taval Chamosos, the Rosh returns home. Okay? And she's coming in disguised, or she's dragging this very, very heavy package of a lot of food. Okay? But Toma Miat BT, who are you? Right? She doesn't recognize her right away, but All right. But Tagid law, kol asher asa law ish. So she relates the whole story of what happened between her and Boaz. Okay. Okay. All right. Question. All right. I'll leave you to research it. So she's also saying, Vatome miyat, who are you? Are you ready for marriage? Did he say yes? You're not. Did he promise you? Are you engaged? Whatever. What's your situation right now? Right? So Ruth answers her, Vatome sheish yomo ela nosan li. He gave me these 6 barley corns or whatever they were called. Ki amar elai al tovoi rekom el chamosech. I don't want you going home empty-handed to your mother-in-law. But Tomer, so Naomi answers her, Shvi biti, stay here, sit down, wait, relax. Adashetedun ech yipol davar. Stay here. You have a promise now from Boaz, and I know that Boaz is a man of action. If he made you a promise, he's not going to sit on his haunches and wait to see how things have developed. I am sure before the day is out, before it's morning, that Boaz is going to do something to fulfill his promise. Okay? So he says, Kilo yishkoto ish. He will not rest kim kilo hadovo hayom until this thing is resolved with you. The promise he made to you is going to get resolved one way or another. Right? Either it's going to be Ploni Amoni, Tov, or it's going to be Boaz himself. Chazal doesn't talk about it, but I just want to throw out to you. How does Ruth feel about all of this now? She's got to wait till the next day. What is her mental state on all of this? Try to put ourselves in Ruth's person. How does she feel about this? This whole thing, this whole plan that she has picked Boaz. This whole plan now, or all of Russ's dreams can fall apart if this closest Goel steps up, right? He says, okay, I'll do it, right? That leaves Russ where? Okay. Just leave that off on the side. We'll see how it works out. So Russ has a problem. And Boaz has a problem too, right? Because if the Goel says, I'm going to do it, where does that leave Boaz? Well, but let's say that Boaz knows through Ruach HaKodesh what has to happen. Okay. So next morning, Boaz Ola Hashar. Boaz goes up to the gate. Hashar is a euphemism. In those days, every town at the town gate was where the court of law, the Sanhedrin, the Beis Din met. The next morning, all right?
You already went home.
The morning. Okay, I'm sorry, the morning. Okay, the morning, okay? Right away, first thing in the morning, Boaz Ola Hashar Vayeshev Sham. That's where he sat down, because that's where the Beis Din met. And we know that Boaz is the head of the Beis Din, right? Beis Din. Vihine, and there's that word vihine. And I told you once that word vihine doesn't appear haphazardly in the script. Vihine means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now working his way into history. Vihine, and lo and behold, it just so happened, okay? V'hinei ha-goel over, okay? The goel is passing by the gate. Right? Of all the things that can happen, right? We don't believe in coincidence. It's not what Jews believe in, right? Okay, this is a God working his way through history, right?
He was supposed to be at least 100 years old because he was the uncle of God.
Well, I have a friend, okay, who has children who are older than their uncle. Can be. Avery Gross, Bob, Avery Gross has children that are older than their uncle. So it could be. But you're probably right. The Goel is also
Old man.
an old man, right? We're not dealing with young people here, okay? Uvoaz Ola Asha, okay. Asher Diber Boaz, the Goel that Boaz spoke about. Vayomer, Surah. Funny word, Surah. When do we have the word Surah before? What does that go back to, the word Surah in the Torah? The angels that came to Sodom, right? Lot says Surah. So we're back to the Sodom and Amorah story. Same language, okay? Surah, Shvab, get over here and sit your butt down, all right? Sit yourself down. We got things to talk about. Poloni Almoni, okay? Right. Okay. Why does it say? So Rita has asked a very important question. Why does it say Ploni Amoni when everybody knows his name is Tov? Because the Torah doesn't want to deal with him by his name. Because what he's going to do now is not worth the Torah mentioning his name. Go argue with Chazal. That's what every piece of Chazal says. He's called Ploni Almoni because what he does, ultimately to the outcome of this story, they want to wipe him out of history. He doesn't step up to the plate to do what he has to do. Okay? All right. Okay. The Medrash says that even if the Goel would have been standing at the end of the world at this time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have whisked him over to where Boaz was sitting. Of course, this was all planned out by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay? Right? So Vayikach, okay, Poloni Almoni, what does the name Poloni Almoni mean? Right? Okay. Poloni means somebody's going to disappear. It's by not doing what he's doing, he's going to disappear from history. If Poloni Almoni would have stepped up, it would have been him instead of Boaz, who the Torah would be talking about. Almoni means anonymous, unknown. So Poloni Almoni, his actions will make him disappear from history. His name is not even worth mentioning. All right? Okay. He becomes Mr. Anonymous or Mr. Irrelevant. Right? Okay. Boaz is the head of the Beit Din, has the power to convene the Beit Din. So a Beit Din has 10 people. Okay? From here, we also learn, because what's going to happen almost immediately with Rus, they're going to get married, that a wedding has to have 10 people, a minyan, at a wedding, right? Minyan, you have to have 10 a minyan at a wedding, right? Huh? This is what, well, I read that this is the source, right? So now he's going to explain what he wants from him. So this is Boaz talking. Vayomer Goel, he says to the Goel, Chelkas Ashoder Shelo Achinu Elimelech, Mochron Naomi Asodem Estei Moab. Naomi is selling Elimelech's field. Remember we started the story, there was one little house with one little field that fell, into disuse because they weren't there, because there was a famine, so the field was, okay, not out of disregard of her husband's inheritance, not that she wanted to give it away, but because she has returned from Moab impoverished. She has no money and needs to sustain herself. So in order to sustain herself, she needs to sell this field. So Boaz is saying to her, purchase the field of our brother Elimelech, and with the money that you purchased the field, give that money to Naomi. She didn't sell it, okay? Is selling. The word marker is selling. She is now selling the field. Okay? Okay. She says now he's saying to her, there's nobody else. It's now just down to the two of us. Either you or I have to perform this act of Goel so that to get Naomi out of our impoverished state. Right? Vani Amati. Okay. Eglo Oznachol Lemor. And I thought I would let you know. This is Boaz talking. I want you to know. Keneged Hayoshvim Neged Ziknei Ami. Buy it before those sitting here. Okay, but Neged Ziknei Ami, and in front of the Beit Din. We're going to have a transaction. Okay, this is the real estate. We're going to record the thing. Okay, you're going to go buy it. I want to let you know. Imtegal Gaol. If you want to step up to the plate and redeem it, do it. Now is the time. Vim lo yigal. But if you don't want to redeem it, Hagidoli, let me know. Tell me right now. The Edor, ki einzu lo scholigol, v'anochi acharecha. Let me know, because I'm the next, and I'll do it, okay? So Vayomer, Poloni Almoni says, Anochi ego. I am willing to do this. He's willing to do this. All right? When Boaz hears this, what do you think he feels? So Boaz now, Vayomer Boaz says to him, not so fast. B'yom kinoscho hasodeh miyad Naomi. The day that you're purchasing this field from Naomi, miyesh Rus haMoaviyah, and from Rus, okay. Konisa lahakim shema meis al nachlaso. You're also going to raise up the name of the deceased through his inheritance. Okay. Boaz makes it clear that not only has he purchased the field, but he has also agreed with this to redeem Machlon's widow. Okay? So now when the Goel hears that, Vayomer HaGoel, so the Goel says, Lo uchal, I misspoke. I made a mistake. I didn't understand all the ramifications of what was going on here. Vayomer HaGoel, so the Goel says, Lo uchal legoli, I can't do this. Pen ashchis es nachalosi. Okay? Because if I'm buying this, I got to take money out of my pocket to buy this field. So once I take money out of my pocket, what happens to my money? I have less money to leave to my kids. Although today you buy real estate, you know, it's a pretty good investment. But maybe this field and this use was not such a good investment at the time. Gal lecha, you Boaz, you do it. And he says, Ato et gulos, gal lecha ato et gulos. See, you do my gulah, kilo uchal legol. Okay, I can't do this. I can't do this. It's not up to me. Okay, all right. So let's now. Why would the Goel refuse? Why would the Goel refuse? Right, the Chazal is, interested to know what were the reasons behind. So they talk about Chazal, the Gemara talk about that the Goel had many reasons not to do this. Okay, practical reasons not to do this. Okay. Number one, we're very surprised that even though we have a halacha in the Torah about mandating yibum, the whole practice of yibum over the years, especially during the time of the Shoftim, that whole practice of yibum had fallen apart. Wasn't common to do anymore. So now, what Boaz is doing here is he's getting him by surprise. When did this yibum business come up? Nobody does yibum anymore. Right? More important, as Bob pointed out, okay, this is not a typical Yibum situation, okay? What would be the typical Yibum situation? The typical, So the typical the one without any issue anymore is really Elimelech. Elimelech, right? Elimelech has no children through Naomi. Naomi has lost her 2 children. So technically, according Yibum from the Torah is that Naomi is the one that has to have Yibum performed. She's the one that doesn't have any children. Elimelech, her husband, doesn't have any children. But we got a problem here. Naomi is very, very old. How is she going to conceive? Okay. Huh? It happened before with Sarah, right? Happened before with Sarah. Okay, but maybe Hashem didn't wrote say here. Okay, right? You got to do miracles. Maybe you only go to the bag of miracles once, right? You can't use the same miracle twice, because then maybe it's not a miracle anymore. Okay. All right. Elimelech's death years earlier, okay, would not have triggered Yibum when Elimelech died. He didn't need Yibum, did he? No, because he had the 2 kids. He had Machlon and Chilion, right? It was only years later, after Machlon and Chilion died, that all of a sudden now there's a Yibum, all right? And the whole situation is, like we said, Naomi is too old to conceive. How's this going to happen? Technically, yes, she is. What was the story? What was the story with, what should we call it? Well, you couldn't do it with not Tamar because Yehuda's wife had already passed away. Okay? All right. So he changes his mind because this whole thing with Yibum catches him unawares. 1, it wasn't practiced. And 2, this whole thing with Yibum, this is a reach. We're talking about Naomi here. She can't conceive. So even if I agree to try to perform some sort of a, sexual thing that has Yibum, that, can lead to childbirth, what are we talking about? She can't give birth anymore. Okay? So it's from a practical reason. Because I'll say that Tov, Ploni Ammoni, you already had a wife and 5 children, right? And the problem sometimes with Yibum is the wife don't want another woman getting involved, right? This is why Yibum is sometimes always considered to be a big chesed. Because you have to do it, right? Right? Okay. Perhaps Ploni Almoni may not be in agreement with the halacha that Boaz is going to proclaim. Because remember, nobody had ever tested that halacha that you can't marry a Moabiyah, a woman from Moab. And so maybe Ploni Almoni feels that Boaz doesn't know the halacha. Nobody's done it before, right? And to top it all off, maybe he feels that the reason why Machlon and Chilion died, why did Machlon and Chilion die? Maybe Machlon and Chilion died because they married a woman from Moab. And Ploni Almoni, I'm not putting myself in that situation. Maybe he's thinking that's why Machlon and Chilion died. I'm not taking my chance. So Ploni Almoni maybe doesn't come off, as bad as we thought he is, right? Ploni Almoni is there because he's just a person in the story that doesn't matter. We don't need him really in the story. Okay, all right. Okay. I don't know if I have time to do this. We're going to talk about a situation in biblical times, okay, certainly in the time of Rus, people didn't have a scribe to sit down and to do a contract, right? So there was a certain situation. Let's look at number 7. The Zos Lefonim Israel. The custom in Israel in former times, the times of Boaz, was, okay, Al Hagula ve'Al Tmura, concerning redemption when you were redeeming a field, and concerning exchanging ownership rights. The Kayim Kol Davar, to sign a contract to make this binding. Shalaf Ishna Alo, the man, either the seller or the buyer, we're not really clear here, would take off his shoe, right? Would take off his shoe, and would give it to the person that he's doing the deal with, okay? Zos had to UW Israel, and this was 2 days. This was the custom or the situation, the legal thing in Israel. So what we're going to have now is, don't think of this as chalitza. This is chalipin, very close to it, an exchange, right? Just like when you're going to go, like I said, you're going to go sell your chametz to the rabbi, you're making a deal. That chametz is not belonging to you. It's going to exchange ownership. The rabbi is going to become your agent to sell your chametz to a non-Jew. So you have to empower him. You do that through the exchange. He gives you something and you give him something. You give him money, whatever it is. He gives you a pen, or a handkerchief, which you're going to give back. But that's where that custom comes from, right? From here, not a custom. That's what it was. Zosad Tudav Yisrael, right? All right. The passing of the shoe from one to another was the official signal of the sale or transfer, had the force of law. Okay. The only exception to this, when you're acquiring something, and I don't want to use this word in the wrong connotation, is when you acquire a wife. When you acquire a wife, I don't mean that the wife is a piece of chattel or a piece of property, but that's the way the Torah refers to it. When you acquire a wife, or you don't want to acquire a wife, it's done different. Acquiring a wife has to be done with something that's worth money, right? Can't be, right? At least a shava pruta. But any woman I know that you gave her a pruta, said you're married to me, would probably tell you to take a hike, right? All right. So, huh? Yeah, Aisha Nikum Service. Kesef, Star, Bia, right? Okay. All right. So, what we're going to have now, by Yomer HaGoel LeBoaz, the Goel says to Boaz, Knei Lecha, Vayishlof Nalo. It's not clear which one, the buyer or the seller. It's really immaterial. Chazal has a whole debate who took off the shoe. It doesn't make a difference. The shoe was taken off as a part of the contract as the deal, okay? I need to stop here. I'm not going to finish it. We will have a share next week. I know it's very close to Erev Pesach. We will have a share next week. We will finish Rus. I will give you some additional commentary on Rus. I will try to tie the 3 stories more closely together of Rus, Lot's daughters, and Tamar, give you all some more similarities. Go through the Chesed sheet because we still have to work towards Malchus, Beit David, all right? And God willing, right after Pesach, whenever we pick up again, we want to first finally start to talk about David HaMelech, how David HaMelech became king, how he was chosen, what the Torah halacha is and far as a king, where it's in the Torah that you can appoint a king, the attributes that David HaMelech had, and that's for after Pesach. But we will have a shir next Wednesday, if you can all make it. I know a lot of you won't be here,